Yeah, we would obviously have liked to have seen the game out with a little bit more authority, the authority that I think that the first half suggested that we might have in the second half. But I'm not going to take too much away from the players in that sense because I feel like um, we've gone 2-0 up at a very difficult place to play against a team that is really fighting for points and has come off the back of a really difficult result last week and had to throw everything at it. And I think that was reflected in the way they made subs, the risk they took in terms of how they set up, and that it caused us some problems in terms of how assertive we could be in the second half for sure. But I felt like the goal aside, we showed a real level of resilience, of discipline, of willingness to stick to a game plan, and I think it's a really big win because coming here is tough. You guys will appreciate the conditions aren't easy. They're very accustomed to playing on a very small pitch. They play in a way which makes life very difficult for you on the ball. They're one of the more aggressive pressing teams in the league. Their counter pressure is very good, and the pitch certainly feeds that. So I feel like we had some difficulties on the ball in comparison to last week's game as an example, and probably the week before. But I felt we played the game in a way in which we needed to play the game, and that was ultimately successful for us. So I was really pleased.
Eric, I imagine some of that is inevitable that you're going to be on the back foot when you have a two-goal lead, but what would you like to see differently and how you guys see it out?
I think we again it's an age old story for us. We're such a threat on the counter attack that our tendency is to try and counter attack at almost every opportunity. And it's an endless topic of conversation for us, and it's not just me who sets the direction of what we do. We have very open and honest conversations with the players. We of course want to play in a way that skews itself toward using the open spaces that we create in the way in which we defend. But I felt like in the way in which we did against Salt Lake last week, strike that balance between staying on the ball for long enough at the points at which we couldn't counter attack to keep the team connected um, to position our wing backs where we want them through connecting consecutive passes. And today, I think the temptation, based on how the first half went and some of the, I suppose, the feel that was involved in the game, the way in which the players felt they could get some success, we attacked really, really quickly. And the downside of that was when we weren't successful, we turned the ball over quick and we find ourselves defending for longer periods than we'd like. But the upside of that was we created some huge chances. So of course, we make that choice in terms of how we set the team up, the messages we give the players, the messages that we arrive at as a group, and obviously we're really well suited to attacking in big open spaces. So we want to make sure we create those and use it well. And it's going to be, I'm sure, a topic of conversation in every single one of these press conferences as to how well we were able to strike that balance. But ultimately, the style is incredibly difficult to play against players executing at a really high level. And I think when we need to come away from home and play on a small pitch, it's very difficult to play on and win a game in a certain way. Then we've shown the capacity to do that. So I'm really pleased that we were able to show that pragmatism, and it's a huge 3 points on the road. And I would say, in the same way that I said to the players, that shouldn't be underestimated. It's very difficult to come here. The home record is very good over multiple seasons for a reason. So I think it's a real feather in the cap for everyone involved there.
On sort of the flip side, what does it feel like as a manager when your teams come out and played so well that you force the opposition manager into making changes before the first half is up?
Yeah, I don't sort of consider it from that perspective. The only perspective I considered the first half from was the execution of the game plan and the level of detail that we showed to get to the point that we got to. And again, it was I suppose a continuation of a theme so far. We've started games really, really well when the players come out of the dressing room with game plan fresh in their mind, a real willingness to execute, a real sharpness in how they execute. We've started almost every game really, really well so far. So I was so pleased in that sense, but also we certainly have the scars of the Galaxy game and the Kansas game, and we're living with those. And we in some senses have righted one or two of those wrongs with the way we've closed the last couple of games out. But they were the perspectives that I'm thinking from: satisfaction with the performance, satisfaction with how the players executed the game plan, and then making sure that we don't get complacent, making sure that we're able to see the game out well.
Eric, what was the process to play the short corner like that, and how did you guys determine Will to be on the end of it?
Yeah, we obviously put a lot of energy into those situations, and without giving the detail away, we within a certain setup have multiple options available to the players, and we give them lots of liberty to play the situations as they see fit. And I think so far across the 7 games so far, we're in a pretty good place when it comes to the danger we can cause teams in almost every set play situation, and that was certainly the case tonight.
Will Trapp has never had more than 3 shots on target in a single season in MLS. What got into him today?
Yeah, I know. It's a topic of conversation between me and him, don't you worry. But I think the fact tonight that he was so dialed in, so precise in that moment, and then obviously showed some real quality from the top of the box in a couple of moments that followed was really pleasing. And he's obviously added that to a really strong defensive performance, and certainly that level of discipline and willingness that the group showed was embodied by Will for sure.
Jamie Watson on the broadcast said that Alonso Martinez has gone to his right in the last couple of PKs. It looked like he was going to his right again, and Dana guessed right. Was that the information you guys had that was a tendency of his?
Yeah, I wouldn't know the detail, but I would expect that we would have been on top of that for sure. And I think obviously we're very diligent with the details behind most situations, and I would be amazed if that wasn't the case today.
We saw your team take a number of shots from outside the penalty area. Is that sort of the equivalent of taking a lot of really long 3-pointers in basketball? Like, what do you tell guys to recycle the ball, or what do you want to
No,
see from
we
players in those
we we
moments?
are big on the quality of chances we create, and I think it's no surprise that over the course of the first 6 games, I don't know how things look after game 7, but we obviously have created a lot of very high value opportunities this year, and we're a team that attacks in a very efficient way in that sense. And I think probably the factor that restricts you here is the width of the pitch, which I think does really influence the way in which the game's played. There aren't quite the spaces that you would normally find yourself with around the edge of the box to maybe progress beyond that line, and I think that probably molds the game to be played in a certain way. And I think you probably saw that from both teams today. But certainly in terms of really big chances, we were certainly the better side in that sense.
Was there anything new or different in Joaquin's play, or is he just continuing the same hot streak that he's
Oh,
on?
he did great, and I think he probably represents what we are striving for in certain moments of the game when we regain the ball, and he really often now shows that balance between taking the space in behind when it's on to do so and connecting well with Tanny and Kelvin, but also he shows that level of calmness and composure to make sure that only on occasion tonight, but certainly more than most, I would say that we can connect some passes, and we can reorganize in more general play with the ball. So I think he's evolved hugely in his time with us here. He's a very complete player now, I would say, and you've seen a performance tonight which of course was very dogged. He showed real aggression. He showed a real willingness to stick to a game plan and a level of discipline. It's a hard running, but he also had some great moments on the ball, and that's what we expected him because he's a good player.
Time for a couple more.
You mentioned calmness and composure. Do you feel like Carlos Harvey is increasing his calmness and composure as the season goes along?
Yeah, and we're going to rely on Carlos as the season goes on in a number of different positions. Now, I'm sure you've obviously noticed his involvement in the middle of midfield today, and that's the position that he came to the club in, and we've obviously converted him into a very, very capable outside centre back here, and for sure he'll continue to play there as the season goes on. But with the injuries that we've had in the middle over the course of the last couple of weeks, then certainly Carlos becomes a player that we'll look to play in the middle. And if he plays in the middle, he's going to have to show that level of composure under some slightly different pressure and tension than he would do if he's playing deep and got the whole game in front of him. So it'll be interesting to see how he evolves for sure.
Scoring 59 seconds into a game, I imagine, is a dream. What was kind of the highlights or the biggest things to make that successful?
Yeah, we make a big point about starting a game well. We start games in a very detailed, purposeful, and intentional way. And I think when you probably watch back the entirety of the minute that leads up to that, it will be to an extent it will be based on a lot of work and a lot of intentionality when it comes to how we start games, and the level of aggression, attention to detail, intensity, and it was exactly what we would want, and we make a huge point about starting games well, and I think that's been reflected in most games so far, as I've said. So we set the course for a really good 45 minutes that followed, and a very dogged, gritty, determined 45 minutes to close the game out.
Last one from John. John?
We saw Nicholas Romero and Jefferson Diaz keep their places in the starting lineup. What was your thinking behind keeping those two in there?
Yeah, well, I wanted to bring Boxy back into the team. I didn't want to compromise too much of the stability that we had on the back of the Salt Lake game. So of course those two guys did really, really well. I think Nico is really finding his feet now, and he's shown tonight what a good player he is in both senses, but particularly in terms of his willingness to defend the box and the level of aggression, the level of intuition that he showed in defending some of those situations. And I think that's what I saw when I did my research on him before him coming here. He's a real box defender. He thrives in those situations, but he's also got real quality on the ball. And albeit we didn't find loads and loads of situations in which he was able to show that tonight, I think over the course of his start so far, he's put in some really solid performances. I'm really pleased with where he is, but also the level of competition we've got. And I would say I think everyone would look at Jeff and be really happy with him and happy for him with how he's bounced back after what happened at Kansas, and he's followed that up with a number of really good performances, and tonight was no different.